Tim McKibben. I'm an organic chemist. I've been a chemist for 34 years.
Wonderful. So how did you first become interested in your career?
Oh, I think growing up, messing around with things and trying to keep yourself entertained, living out in the country, you mix a lot of things and play around with certain things. So when you get into high school and you're able to do lab work and stuff, people either like it or they don't like it. I ended up liking it, and it was one of two careers that I had considered, and the other one was zoology, and I didn't think I could make a living being a zoologist, since there's probably a lot fewer zoologists than there are chemists, so I chose chemistry. To begin as a chemist, typically you need to have a Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry. People that are inquisitive, people that can work independently and to question results and observations, I think work real well in this field. You also have to be able to get along with other people, so it's not just a independent thing. You have to work with team members under certain situations and stuff. So, but just being inquisitive and thinking outside the box is a good trait to have. When I started back in the mid-'80s, I think I was offered in the low 20s, I think 23 or 24,000. That was back in 1986, so that's a long time ago. But you can make well above 100,000 depending on the job that you actually have. Sure. My current work environment, I run my own company, and so I'm the only employee, and I'm a government contractor, so I'm quite busy. I don't have a lot of interaction with people in this particular job because I'm busy doing what I've been contracted to do. But I have worked in other situations where I've worked with hundreds of people in the same building, and so you may have interaction every day with lab partners and people that work down the hall with you, or you may have opportunities to work in a government field where you may be going to court or you may be doing casework. So it runs a gamut from working for a big entity to working for yourself. So it just depends. I have a list of things that I want to do that day, and that changes daily, and it changes with the outcome of what I do during the day. And so I may go to work and start things or work things up that I've worked on the day before, projects that are in the middle of being finished. And those could be anything from designing a synthesis, a manufacturing of a chemical, to the monitoring of the chemical through analytical means, or working the chemical up, which means isolating it from the reaction mixture and purifying it. Eventually they get purified for sale to a government or other entity that requests the material. And then there are times that are spent looking at data, trying to determine if what was made in the reaction mixture is actually what you wanted made. Oftentimes there are impurities and byproducts that are formed that are not expected. And so you have to be able to determine which component is what you want, or was it even made or not made. And then you have to design, unless you're following a pre-designed recipe, you have to design all the recipes yourself. It's much like cooking. But it depends on a lot of projects. Some projects are very short and quick, and some projects take months to do. So it just depends on what you're working on at the time as to how long it'll take. The benefit of my current job is that I'm the boss. So I get to set my hours. I get to take time off if I need time off to handle something with my family, or if I need to go somewhere. I don't have to worry about getting permission to leave work. The downside is that I don't work with a bunch of colleagues like I used to, and there's good sides and bad sides about working with other people, but always having other people there is good to bounce ideas off of. You get to know people, and you can count on them, and they can count on you if they need help or you need help. I've worked the whole gamut, but I'm very independent, and so for me, I enjoy that part of it. I can set my time limits for doing things. If I have to run out and run an errand, I can do that. It's very flexible. It's very compatible, but it's also very time consuming in that if there's nobody else there to do all of the jobs in the company, then it's your responsibility. So oftentimes what would be considered 9 to 5 hours don't apply, right? I could be up at night reading journal articles. I could be checking inventory. I could be doing a lot of different things that have to be done that normally you wouldn't do that after hours because you're not at work. So I'm always at work because I'm self-employed. So I'm always thinking about something that I have to either get done, bills that have to get paid, or whatever. But if you work in an established company where you're working for somebody else or you're working for a government entity, most of the time, if you're 9 to 5, once you leave, you can check it at the door. So that's the downside of being self-employed, is that there's a lot of things that people don't see that are your responsibility. And so you have to think about them during off hours to make sure that they get done. I enjoy the synthesis part of it, the making new materials. I like determining new ways of doing that, more efficient routes or methods that nobody have ever thought of before. That's always a challenge, and that's kind of it keeps you motivated in doing this kind of stuff, because it's there's a million different ways to try and make something, and maybe only one or two things works, right? And oftentimes factors that you don't expect come into play as to the success of a particular reaction. And if you don't do the reaction more than once, you may never figure that out, right? But from a production side, you don't want to have to do the reaction more than once, because that's more time, which translates to more money, which increases the cost of production of that material, right? But in an ideal world, it would only take you one reaction. It would be perfect each time. In the real world, it doesn't happen that way. Well, it's like any other industry. I think one of the things that is changing is there's a lot more of a concern with environmentally friendly processes, what are called green procedures or green solvents. So using chemicals that have not been traditionally used in the past. And so you see a lot of grants and a lot of research directed toward alternative fuels, a lot of hydrogen storage, electric vehicles, all sorts of environmentally friendly type of careers or research, wind and solar, that kind of thing, where 10, 15 years ago, very few people were looking at that. So, you see the advent of electric cars, cars without drivers, all sorts of things. And what people have to realize is that every commercial product that makes it to market, there's at least a chemist behind them somewhere in the process, because the chemistry is a study of materials. So it doesn't matter if it's a piece of clothing you're wearing, or if it's a food item that you're eating, it's medicine you're taking, it's a computer that's made, a finish that's on an item. Everything somewhere along the line has at least a chemist in the mix, trying to figure out, hey, this is a better glue, this is a better material, it's more weatherproof. From the paint on your house and your car to the makeup you wear to the medicine you take. It's a lot of people don't think about it. The material that you use to store information on in your camera, your SD cards. Well, material chemists, they design the surfaces and stuff that are used to miniaturize the storage of large amounts of information. So things like that, they just didn't say, hey, let's make a little one. I mean, it took years to figure out what type of metal surface they need, make it corrosion resistant, make it be able to process information quickly and store large amounts of information. And that all has to do with, at some point in time, chemists figuring out that this is the proper material to use, to give to the engineers to design the size of it and how it's going to function. Well, I think if somebody wants to go into this field, when you first get out of school, you have almost no experience. And to set yourself apart from your competition in order to get your first job, it's always good when you're in school is to do extra work. Oftentimes, as a chemist or a chemistry major, you'll be required to do research. Usually it's just a semester. But what you should do is you should do many semesters of research, whether it's work study or whether it's done for credit. Because what happens is when you go into an interview and you're a freshly graduated chemistry major, you automatically have much more experience than the person next to you because they only took the required semester. And what an employer will do is they'll look at that and they'll say, hey, you know what, I want a pair of hands to make these materials or to study this material. And you've done this for years, even though you're a college student. Okay, so that's a much more marketable person than somebody that's just gone through the book learning and has one semester of research. Right?
Perfect.